to Sobremesa Chats. This is episode 2. Today we're talking about therapist hot takes. And this is the one I've been waiting for. This is what I've been waiting for.
Same.
In our last episode, we talked a little bit about what therapy is and what to expect. And we did some like frequently asked questions around therapy. And so today we're just going to talk as therapists about some of the things we see in the field, and some of them I think they're a little bit of hot takes. We're not going to necessarily blow things up, but I think that some of these can be really interesting to chat about. If you're new here, Sobremesa Chats is our 2 times a month conversations that we have around mental health topics and culture and all that good stuff. And so we're glad you're here. My name is Hilda McClure. I'm an LPC and COO of Cannenta Center and board member of Cannenta Foundation. And I'm joined by the always lovely Elizabeth Palafox, who's our clinician lead in San Antonio. And I'll let her introduce herself.
Yes, hi, my name is Elizabeth Palafox, licensed clinical social worker here in San Antonio, the lead clinician at the Cannenta office here. So I'm excited to get into the behind the scenes, the peeking behind the curtain of therapy and therapists.
I love it. I'm about to dive in, but I just want to say, because this probably is going to air before the Super Bowl, that
think about
that Benito Bowl is really around the corner, and I feel that's really important for all of our mental health.
Exactly.
Wellness. Yeah. Well, that's right. Anthony and I are talking about what we're going to do this year, because typically we go over to your friend's house, which we're still open to. But I want to be able to dance it out if I need to twerk it out. So we might be home this year just so I can
let it out.
Yeah. I do dance in public, but mainly with strangers. So I thought that was an important addition to today's episode.
It is.
Okay. I'm so curious to hear what you think.
Yes.
So one of the things, just kicking off, one of the things that has been on the rise is AI relationships. So these folks are having long-term, romantic relationships with artificial intelligence. So much so that they're writing articles about it, and even talking to their partners about being in an open relationship so that they can be with their significant other. Okay, part of me thinks, wow, that is wild.
It is.
And then another part of me is I totally get it. People want connection. And nothing feels better than feeling connected to someone, I'm going to put that in quotation marks, that agrees with you.
Yeah.
And that tells you how wonderful you are. And has the perfect empathetic answer every time you come to them with an issue. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so that to me is, like you said, if somebody is going through a stage of loneliness or has been for a while, seeking out comfort in, and that it's existed before, right? In different ways where people, connect with almost like a third party, just for the sake of connection. But this might feel a bit safer, maybe more accessible, maybe less pressure, less stakes. I think the real danger, though, is it is artificial reality, and that line begins to blur the more you interact with that. And it can even veer towards just a dangerous zone, right? If you are unable to remind yourself, right, this is not an actual person. I also think that relationships, the good, healthy relationships, need conflict. And if you're never fighting in that artificial relationship, that's not really a relationship, right? That's not really helping you grow as a person. So the romantic side of things, yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. And then I know we can dip more into the therapeutic thing, the therapeutic use of AI, because I have now heard some clients say, I asked my other therapist this and that, and I'm like, your other
Mhm.
therapist? And they're like, oh yeah, ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, okay. And so now having to have conversations around nuance, around um evidence based, around I I know a little bit about your history. Does this program also know about
Mhm.
your history? And so um there's a lot to consider
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I didn't even think about like because I've had a couple clients say the same thing, like literally word for word my other therapist. And I think maybe why I haven't like got caught on that quite yet is because a lot of my clients are like, yeah, they told me what to do and then I do what I want anyway.
I'm
So
still here. Yeah.
yeah.
Coming
So yeah. So I'm like, okay, so they're not being like sucked into
yeah.
to that.
Mhm.
But I think
Mhm.
that's another good point is that AI cannot it can be helpful in some things. I don't want to deny that because I
Yeah.
think that if you don't have any safe relationship and that feels safe, like the nervous system is gonna gravitate towards it, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Um, totally. And I think that it can be a symptom, right? Like if this is my where I want to spend my reality, that's actually a symptom of like your needs not getting met, a symptom
Mhm.
of maybe even your trauma showing up.
Mhm.
Um, because it's not reality. It's not real.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
not real.
because you're never going to hurt its feelings. You're never going to mess up. It's never going to hold anything against you. And so, yeah, naturally, it's like, oh, I can be who I am. I can say what I need. And when you've never had that, it's it's hard. It's hard not to lean into that.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're noticing, I'm spending more time on this application than I am in the real world or like with real people, do I need to step back a little bit? Or now I'm finding I can't. Maybe now I've developed a dependency on this. Again, maybe that's time for checking in with someone about that and getting some
Absolutely.
support around that.
Absolutely. And this is not therapeutic at all, just like my very real humanness is that if my partner was like, hey, I want to have an open relationship with AI, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. There's
Mm-hmm.
like no negotiating for me. Um, and the fact that like they would lose me to be no, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not saying that that's the way everyone has to do it, but just like that's like my gut reaction around like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
like I could, I,
Mm-hmm.
I could not, I could
No.
not.
Mm-mm.
And honestly, there is a part of me that cannot understand that you would lose a real life partner to.
True. Yeah.
I do and I
Mm-hmm.
don't get it right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
that's it's. I mean,
It's a new territory, and
absolutely.
I I'm be curious to even talk to like yeah like couples therapists who or folks who specialize in couples work
Mhm.
and have maybe started seeing some of that
Mhm.
how that plays a role in there.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm gonna reach out to one of my Rene. I'm coming. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask him if he's seeing that because I'd be really curious. I don't see couples, so I'd just be really curious how that's
Mm-hmm.
showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. Yeah. Also, this is Chismosa. There's like a whole Reddit channel, right? There's a
Yeah.
whole Reddit channel around AI relationships, and they really lock it down so that there's like not haters in there. But like they have all kinds of when this was getting really big sometime last fall, they really um, chat the company that owns that was trying to like scale back so that that wasn't happening and like people were finding like workarounds to get their
Mm-hmm.
partner back and
Mm-hmm.
you could see like the very real grief that people were
Yeah.
experiencing in loss
Yeah.
of their AI partner. um yeah.
That's wild. That's
Hmm.
wild. There's a movie. Um, that came out last year called Companion. It's like a horror movie,
Okay.
and the plot of it is the girlfriend is an AI robot, but she didn't know that, and so she's like discovering that, but how you can toggle things like intelligence and humor and all these different things to make like the perfect partner for you. And it was just such an interesting commentary. No, but it was
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
about how, I mean, we are seeing some of that, and
Mhm.
it's a good movie. It was a good movie. If you're not too scared of horror movies,
Yeah,
it's worth watching.
it's worth watching. Yeah, I don't do the horror, but that's curious. We just started watching last night. One of our favorites is Ready Player One. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
everything takes place in the Oasis,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And that is, I mean, that's kind of what it feels like we're moving towards.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
So
so many movies about this. I really think Blade Runner is another one where he has an AI girlfriend.
friend.
So many things, but yeah,
So
yeah,
many, yeah.
definitely a conversation to
Yeah,
keep having.
absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna jump into one of the other hot takes. I guess if we can maybe
Yeah, just pick whichever
whichever
you
one.
want.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I was thinking around like art, maybe artificial or social media is a hot take is I hate or I dislike, strongly dislike influencer therapists, wellness gurus, personas,
Mhm.
that I think maybe just have a certain label attached to them, but I'm not seeing any license or training attached to it. That they are sharing a lot of their philosophies,
Mhm.
and that can be a slippery slope if
Yeah.
people are using that as their therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I there was like a few people I was following and then I had to like unfollow because it was making me feel a certain kind of way. But I think what really gets me or really what grinds my gears is like when they're profiting over
Mm-hmm.
on people's pain. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a big issue for me. And I think that's I mean, influencers inherently have to influence you into spending money in order to make their career. Right. So like I can give away a ton of mental health advice and like you don't have to pay me anything. Um because I'm not right? Like we can do these
Right.
podcasts for free because I
Right.
don't need to convince you of
Yeah.
your pain or your dysfunction in order to make my career. Um and so it really bothers me that some of these folks are becoming experts in a field that they don't have any training in. And just,
Mm-hmm.
it's very dangerous. It can be very dangerous because there's so much nuance in mental health, so much
Mm-hmm.
nuance. Like, I mean, you and I get that. Like, people come in and they'll both say there's depression, and the treatment looks 1,000 times different because of all the nuance that can exist
Right.
in the way people present and what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And while some of the information can be helpful and I love that there's more access to it, I just it's a dangerous game, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And similarly, as we were talking about with the AI, a influencer knows you as a follower and doesn't know your specific history or
Mhm.
background, and if it what they're saying is not taking into account the context of something that you've been struggling with or you were exposed to, and it's just not taking that into consideration. And when I hear, the profiting piece, I've heard before, well, you're just getting paid to hear people's problems, or you're doing this because you're getting paid, or, as a therapist. And again, when we look at influencers, I don't know if this sounds too like callous, but you can just be a number at times. You're just a number, one of the number of followers with the therapeutic relationship. Yes, we have boundaries, but it's hard not to, during the week be like, oh, I wonder how so and so's job interview went, or I hope, they were able to have that conversation where we're still actively um, present in what's going on for you personally. And that's even outside of the 50 minutes we're meeting once or
Absolutely.
twice a
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I'll share this. I'm making I've been kind of like it's been on my heart this year to pray more specifically for clients. So I'm making a little prayer wall
I love
for
that.
my closet so I can be praying for them. Um and I think that just kind of goes to your point is that we're in a real relationship. And so even though we also get paid, um you're paying for safety. I think that's the best way to put it. Is like you're paying so that all your secrets be like are kept secret. You're paying for like my years of training so that when
Yeah.
really hard, scary things come up, I know what to do and I'm not running for the hills.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not really, you're not necessarily paying for the relationship per se.
Yeah.
That part comes for free.
Yeah.
Right. You're paying for all of these other things that help keep the relationship
Right.
safe.
Yeah.
Um, and that does not happen with these influencers. um and that's not to say that there isn't good stuff, right? Like I do think like influencing can be really helpful to
Yeah.
provide access,
Mm-hmm.
especially I think about especially for some of the folks that we know, like Gabor Mate, Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Amen, or right, that
Mm-hmm.
they've been around for decades and decades, and their work is really can be really helpful. And they only existed in the therapy realm. And so now it's really cool to see them have a little bit of a platform because their work is helpful. But I think it does come back um, for me, it comes really back to the profiting off of people's
Mm-hmm.
pain in that
Mm-hmm.
kind of way. And
Mm-hmm.
I will say I will never be rich as a therapist.
Yeah.
There's like we can be really honest that like in grad school they sell you something. And
Yeah.
like I remember I had one professor who he charged 250 an hour, but he had been in the field for like 45 years.
No, yeah,
You know?
it takes that experience
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I've been in the field for 6 years. Like I but either way, like there's no like I there will not be a world in which I get rich as a
Mm-hmm.
therapist.
My mom tells me that. She's
Yeah.
like, escogiste una carrera de pobres. I'm like,
Un poquito,
okay,
yeah.
okay, we don't do it for the money.
Yeah,
She
that's
tries.
that. And that's for sure. I mean, can there be folks that fall into that category? But I would say that like most of us really do care for people and want to see. At least I can speak about my journey. But one of the things I felt like since I was a little girl was like serving women and children. I there was like a really specific instance, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and just really feeling the call to like serve women and children, and more than that, like how do I help them become more free?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and like that feels like a call on my life, like not even just like on my career. Like it's helpful that my career helps with
A
that.
vocation.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, but for sure, it's de pobre, definitely, definitely. Let's see. Let's do okay. Okay, let's do this one. We don't all have ADHD.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We know that there's been a rise in diagnosis of ADHD and autism. I do, especially millennials. I do think indeed that there has been some misdiagnosis. I definitely agree with that
Yeah.
for cultural reasons, for gender reasons, right? Like women don't get diagnosed with autism as often as men because it presents a little bit differently, so it gets missed. Same thing with ADHD. Um, Knowing that ADHD has two parts, attention deficit and then attention deficit with hyperactivity. Um, but not everyone be having ADHD out
Yeah.
here. Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone be having ADHD out here. I think. that part of the problem, the reason why we can't focus is because of social media.
Mhm. Mhm. The
And it looks like ADHD, but it's not actually ADHD.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about how when I was, I think up until high school, I was like one of the, I guess, the weird kids because I didn't have social media. I never wanted
Good for
it,
you.
and so it took me till college to like finally decide, okay, I'll get a Facebook or something, Instagram. But I was just thinking back like my level of focus back then, and I could just sit and read all these pages and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and how truly, yeah, and I think social media within itself has also evolved more quickly. Like
Mm-hmm.
what Instagram was 10, 15 years ago is not what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the flooding of information, stimulation, and then on top of that, the like everyday pressure of just like life, work, family, we don't literally don't have the capacity, the attention span for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's even where like the work around mindfulness is so important. Because I can see how it'd be like, did I not get diagnosed? I should have been diagnosed with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
but it's how how am I moving through life? How do I have things set up for myself? Um, and also to be diagnosed, you also need a formal evaluation by a
Mm-hmm.
trained, professional. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a couple questions, it's very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
And um, just keeping that in mind as far as like self-diagnosing, because I know that has become more and more popular. It
Mm-hmm.
does require you to really get into it
Absolutely.
in a evaluation format.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of people also don't know that ADHD anxiety can present as ADHD symptoms, and trauma can present as ADHD symptoms, and
Um,
autism can present as ADHD
yeah,
symptoms.
yeah.
Um, and so, one of the like key things I always tell clients is that if you think you have ADHD and you find someone to prescribe you a medication, and the medication isn't working, especially if it's like one of the like classics, right? Because now
Mhm.
there's a lot of non-stimulants that have kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
come on the market, but
yeah.
like a classic stimulant, and it is not making you feel normal, you probably don't have ADHD.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if it's making you feel sped up or whatnot, then you don't have, then that's not
Yeah.
right.
Mm,
ADHD a lot of times can be managed pretty decently with medication.
yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
so yeah, a full full battery, a full
Hmm.
assessment I think is really needed. And then I think the other part of it too, and this is, Oi, I'm on a roll today. I can feel the little fire. The other thing is, if you have ADHD, start doing ADHD things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like okay,
Hmm.
don't like I'm not, and this is really, no one really comes into my room like this, but like if you think you have ADHD, just start doing some ADHD things. Those are very readily available on the World Wide Web. You think about like making lists, and sometimes making lists can be hard for the ADHDer, and so I honor that
Hmm.
and I recognize that. But there's a lot of other good things, right? And so sometimes like like if you think you have it, like start doing the things, right? And see if those help, because they're like, as a therapist, like we can manage some of those things and we can manage like the shame and the stigma, but a lot of it will be things you have to do outside of the counseling room to help improve symptoms.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, you don't need a formal diagnosis, and some of those ADHD things are actually helpful for a lot of folks.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So okay, whew, you've
I
given
know.
us.
So one that I feel is a hot take.
Mm-hmm,
It's important, but also I kind of like
mm-hmm,
would like some feedback on in the therapy room with your clinician. It's not just going to be about validation. At times there will be some confrontation, and that's important too.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I will be honest in that. when I first started meeting with clients, or even my internships in grad school, I was very like just validating. Because you're like, oh, this person doesn't maybe have the people who are supportive
Mhm,
or understanding or compassionate, so
mhm,
validating. But then as I've worked with different clients,
mhm,
different demographics, different, again, presenting issues or diagnosis, not everybody benefits from validation,
mhm,
because at times that's maybe reinforcing things. Maybe that's avoiding
mhm,
talking about certain things. Sometimes I just don't respond to a more gentle approach. I've
mhm,
had clients be like, I need you to be tougher with me. Like I need, they compared it to when they were like some comparisons have been like a personal trainer or a
mhm,
coach, like a sports coach, where it's like that more direct or tougher love.
mhm,
Um, and so that's back to where we were talking about AI relationships needing confrontation. So do actual therapeutic relationships.
mhm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I very similar to you, very validating, very empathetic. It hasn't been till like a little bit later in my career that I feel more comfortable um, being a little bit more confrontational. And I don't know that I think we are using the word confrontational. I don't know that that's the best word because I think
Mm-hmm.
confrontation has a kind of a stigma around it. But
Mm-hmm.
just being like honest, right? Like being
Mm-hmm.
really just be like, hey, I'm noticing this pattern, or like, I'm noticing that every time I have this one client, and to your point, like they need a little bit more of that, like direct. And it was wild as a clinician. It was like so wild to me because I just did it. I was a little scared, but I did it. And um they were like so thankful.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, thank you for sharing. And then there was like a lot of change that happened pretty quickly
Yeah.
after that, once it was like brought up. So I do think it's really helpful. And I also think, kind of rolling into the one that's right under that, like I do think that one of the things that we need to teach society in general is how to manage conflict well.
Mm-hmm.
And conflict doesn't always mean I'm taking my earrings off, right? Or that I'm going to pull hair. Conflict can, or that we'll stop talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, one of the most, uh, like one of the moments with a client that has like really marked me was back when I was working at the university. I had a client come in and they just called me out, man. They just were like, hey, the way you were talking about this was not appropriate, and it really hurt my feelings. And um like they just really just did a good job, I think, of like just calling out how I
Mm-hmm.
hurt their feelings and just the way I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about something.
Yeah.
And the client is still with me.
Yeah.
And just to show that, like, in relationship, like we can have conflict in relationship and it not be detrimental to the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And I think
Mm-hmm.
confrontation has a lot to do with that too. That I
Yeah.
can be honest with you and it not be like deeply personal
Yeah.
or like intend to hurt you, and work through some of the feelings that might come up with that.
Yeah. And you're helping, I guess we help each other grow as well, because therapists aren't like perfect. We're also looking at life, like you said, through certain lenses or biases, or just we at time maybe go through the motion one day and we miss something. And so to be called in, I know they would use that a lot in our grad school program. I'm gonna call you in, but you call in and highlight,
Yeah.
it's not about you as a person, but this can maybe be adjusted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Our clients impact us just as much as we impact them. And I think that there's a real beauty to us being able to have really hard conversations with one another, even about the nature of our relationship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And, one of the best parts about it is that there is absolutely a kind of an element that I'm just going to take it as a therapist, because there's very little that's actually personal, right?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
it gives like such good practice, like it's such a good safe practice zone for some of this. um and I think like even on a personal note, like when we have a hard conversation and a client decides like, oh, this relationship is worth it, it also like encourages me in my own personal life around like, oh, I can do this outside of here too, even if it's a little bit inherently different.
Mhm, mhm.
I love that. That's a good hot take. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good hot take. Let me see. Is it my turn or is it your turn?
I think it's yours.
Okay, okay. I like this one. And I think you and I have talked about this. It doesn't have to be clinical in order to be effective.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Evidence based is huge. We do want to be using what we call evidence based practices, which, if you're unfamiliar with that term, it just means that there's been research done and it was found to be clinically effective, um, and that it's been tested, right? And so there's a um, oh my gosh, I can't think of the statistics term, but clinically significant or statistically significant. And so there's tests that we do to make sure that it's in like that. Is it like 2% or the 0.2%? And if
Yeah.
it's
Uh-huh.
clinically like significant, it means that it's if whatever they're measuring, it can be
Right.
effective or whatever. So that's what we call evidence based. Um, but I think there's a lot of stuff that is not like that that can be really, really helpful in the therapy room. I think laughter is a huge one. Like sometimes just joking with a client or just spending some time like sharing memes or just like having like something what I call like a little bit more real life than just talking about
Yeah.
whatever the issue is. I think that can be really effective for helping build trust, helping build rapport. I
Yeah.
think things that are like a little bit outside of the box, like walk and talks,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mhm.
like I
Mhm.
think that can be really helpful. Um, I think that like showing interest as a real human, like I definitely want to see pictures. Like I
Yeah.
definitely want to read receipts.
Mhm. Yeah, show me the text.
Show me the text. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me what they said, you know? And those aren't necessarily like super clinical, but I think they can be really effective in like helping like build a relationship with a client. I'm trying to think of what else might fall under that.
One that comes to mind is sitting with them and like filling out the application or writing the email or whatever they've been administratively holding off. Let's do that together. And it's not so much clinical. Yes, it's more of a task, but when you step out of the room,
Mhm.
you're going to get distracted. You're going to get a potential of you getting avoidant again, putting it off till putting it off. And so having us support you in that together, we can do it. Um, I've, that removes anxiety because now that's off my to-dos or that I've confronted it and it's past me now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually had a client who they did have ADHD. And one of the things that was really helpful was body doubling. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so we would have like a regular session and then save like the last like 20 minutes to body double.
I like
So,
that.
so they would do whatever they needed to do and I would just sit with them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it removed so much anxiety that functioning improved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would work on notes or whatever, and then yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was yeah.
Um,
I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
even like and then certain cultural things too. If again, not necessarily clinical, but if somebody talks about doing um like bringing in something as a form of like release. So whether that is you know, I want to something elemental, right? Like I want to dissolve this in water, or I want to like release this into the air. I want to, something more
The burning
elemental.
ceremony, or
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Or just like collaborating on what might that look like if they're already practicing that outside of
Mhm.
session, but how can they plan it to be more intentional based
Mhm.
off what we're doing in session.
Yeah.
So kind of mixing those two practices together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's another great example. Or like cleaning, right? Like if I have
Mm,
a client who's anxious and cleaning makes them feel better, there's no research about cleaning, but I
yeah.
will encourage that, right? Like I will,
Mhm.
um, I think that's another one. Okay, so I had this thought, um, kind of related, unrelated, about these cultural practices. So I've been thinking a lot about how culture gets passed down through like generationally, right? And specifically, I was thinking about my home, Puerto Rico, because it's so insular, right? Like it's 100 miles by 35 miles. So, and right, like to get there, you have to get on a plane or a boat. You can't drive
Yeah.
there. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit protected from outside influence, maybe in the same way than if they had more countries next to it. However, it's also always been a colony, right? Ever since Spain took over back when Christopher Columbus came through. Okay. So I've been wondering, like, under these like systems of oppression, how has Puerto Rico been able to maintain such a rich cultural heritage, even in the midst of this? And so I was reading this unrelated book, and they're talking about the nervous system and creating capacity and whatnot. And so then I thought, some of these cultural practices, whether we've realized it or not, because no one's studying them, have actually been building capacity in nervous systems to
Mm,
maintain cultural identity.
wow.
And I think that kind of goes back to this, that there are things that we're doing culturally that have helped us build resilience, but because no one's studying it, no one's named it, no one's like really done the work of like pulling away parts,
Mm-hmm.
um we're not calling them clinical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even though it's therapeutic.
Yeah, even though it's
Mm,
therapeutic.
that's so
um and so I think to your point around like the cultural practices of the limpia or the
yeah.
curandero or whatever that can look like. I think for Puerto Rico, we love to eat, and we love to dance,
Mhm.
and we love to have a good time,
Yeah.
and so we can pull some research for some of those
Mhm.
individual
Mhm.
things. Um, but I think like when we put it all together in the pot, it's creating levels of resilience that
Yeah.
we're not being acknowledged because they're not clinical.
Yeah. Exactly. Mhm. Mhm.
Mm. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't think we have any time for any more today, but I think we have a couple times to share some therapy memes. You down?
Yay!
Can we do
Yes.
that? Okay. Let me, let me, okay, let me get this up and running. We're going to, okay, can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay, therapist. Can you think of anyone who's a negative influence in your life who is causing you to feel this way? You. Well, of course I know him. He's me.
Oh, true.
Sometimes. Sometimes. This is one of my favorite ones.
Oh.
Trying to apply what your therapist says. The angry penguin, like literally. When my
Oh man.
therapist is like, "Hey, let's practice some mindfulness." Me. This is me.
Like, yeah, ugh, this is so dumb. I don't want to do this.
Yes,
And then you're like, it worked.
it worked. Have you seen like the like any, I don't know if it's a meme, but like when people just post like, turns out that walking outside and drinking water does work.
Does work. Unfortunately, it does work.
Yes, yes. That's how I feel about this.
I know. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Oh, the next one. I laugh so hard. Therapy is so funny. Like, hi, I'm here for my crying appointment. Accurate.
Oh,
Accurate. That's so
that's so
funny.
funny.
I always think, I always like, just like, oh, like when clients come in and they apologize for crying.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, no, girl, this is where you're supposed to be crying.
Yes. That's what I tell them. You wouldn't apologize for sweating at the gym.
Mhm.
This is just a reaction you're having, but this is a place for it. So
That's, yeah, yeah,
it's good.
yeah. I love that. And then this is the last one I have.
Oh, oh yes, Betty
Yeah,
White. Yes.
Betty White. Yeah, but client, you probably really have your shit together, huh?
Oh
Every
man.
therapist ever.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
If only.
If
If
only, yeah.
only.
And I do think that it can be helpful sometimes to share that with clients, that little bit of self disclosure in that way, that I also struggle with anxiety and don't always drink all my water.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Hot Therapist Hot Takes. This one was a fun one. We might have to do this again.
Yeah.
Um, Next month in February, we will be talking about amor and love and healthy relationships. So make sure to join and keep your eye open for those episodes. If you are needing a therapist or you're curious about just checking it out, feel free to check us out at cannentacenter.com. We do take all major insurances. But if you can't maybe afford therapy and you're still in need of a bilingual counselor, please feel free to visit our foundation, cannentafoundation.org, and look for our Project Ayuda, where we offer low cost sessions. But we will see you on the next one.
Yay.